Serious, what is the most disrespectful thing a guest ever did in your home? They tried kicking my cat because she got too close. This family member knew I had cats before coming to visit and said it was no problem. Needless to say, they've never been invited over again, and any time they stop by for something, their ass stays on my front porch. Don't fuck with my cats. A friend became homeless, so I took him in. He invited his boyfriend from another state to move in with us without consulting me. I didn't say anything because I was terrified of living alone at the time. An ex was stalking me. He got a dog off of Craigslist instead of paying rent. The dog hurt my little wiener dog, and I had to deal with rehoming his dog because he couldn't deal with the emotions. He misrepresented the situation to his boyfriend and made me sound like a terrible person. My grandpa was in town and helped me move a futon out of storage to my home so my guests could stop sleeping on the couch. When we came inside, the autistic boyfriend was watching weird furry videos at his computer. I left town for 3 days to visit a friend graduating from basic training. When I came back, they had moved out into another friend's house. After talking crap about me, the house was unlocked, there was no water for my dog or cat. Instead of changing the cat litter, they had dumped it right outside the back door. Beer cans were everywhere. I don't know how they could have afforded booze because they supposedly had no money, and a porn magazine was left on my bed. They were there for less than 3 weeks. A couple months later, my friend's lease expired. The couple had not yet gotten jobs. I let everyone else rent rooms from me. When my former guests asked, I was tired of them walking all over me and told them no.
Hey guys, much like you, I love reading people's stories on Ask Reddit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of weird middle school level, just thought experiment type hypotheticals like nice try Baskin Robbins. I don't find this compelling, so that's why I've made it my mission to trawl and crawl through Ask Reddit and find the very best content and put it in your ears. That's why I'm begging you, like and subscribe. If there's anything I can do to help you out, give you the kind of content that you crave to help you get through your workday, let me know in a comment. But please like and subscribe.
Back in my bachelor days, my buddy and I decided to hit the nightlife in some bars in Austin. I was never a big drinker and had a few beers over the course of the evening. He was drinking vodka all night like it was water. Needless to say, he was in no condition to drive across town to his place, so I told him he could just crash at mine. Sunday morning and I'm getting ready for church. Knock on the door and ask if he's okay. Told him he could sleep in while I'm gone if he wants to, but he just says he's got to get going and quickly leaves. Get back from church a few hours later and the entire apartment smells like shit. Sniff out the source in the guest bed. Evidently the fucker had woken up during the middle of the night and evacuated a beagle-sized turd into my sheets, rolled them up and then continued sleeping the rest of the night in the same bed he had befouled. The real WTF, other than sleeping all night next to a rolled-up sheet with your own monstrous deuce in it, is that he could have just stayed after I left, cleaned up, and I would have probably never known. Fuck you, Warren. My sister brought her boyfriend over to my house and proceeded to tell him how I ruined her life because I was born 2 years after her and stole all her attention, and that is why she is depressed to this day. At the time she was 30. Get right the fuck out of my house with that nonsense. She'd been saying it for years, but that was the last straw. My health problems, which she credits with stealing her attention, didn't affect me that much, and they happened to me. My dad and I were once dog sitting for my neighbor, and we would listen to music on their really nice sound system while we played with their dog, and that made me uncomfortable. Reading these comments, I'm so glad I'm not the only one that feels incredibly uncomfortable doing anything in someone's house when they're not there. My roommates and I lived in a basement suite in a house during our second year of university, with the landlord upstairs. The landlord was the chillest landlord who ever existed and was fine with us throwing parties every weekend pretty much. She had rented to a group of musicians for years before us and was accustomed to the noise. One time she came down the set of stairs connecting the upper and lower suites to drop off some mail. The door in our basement is normally locked from the outside, so we can't go upstairs through it, but she must have forgotten to lock it back up on her way out. Later that night we noticed that one of our friends, John, had disappeared. His shoes were still by the door, so we assumed he had walked outside barefoot. We didn't really make much of it because he suddenly appeared back half an hour later. The next day the landlord comes down and says that we had an escapee last night. We were all confused for a moment, but then it all clicks for us at the same time. John. She recounted the story of what happened to us. Turns out John had been feeling adventurous and, without realizing what he was doing, opened the door to the upstairs and walked up. He made his way to the fridge, opened it and started eating handfuls of pie straight from the tin. Not only was she cool enough to not immediately call the police or put an end to our party, she started talking to him. She asked him how old he was. 19, we are Canadian so we are legal to drink. She follows up with how long have you been 19? Thinking it was his birthday, which would explain the excessive drunkenness. His answer to that was I've been 19 for 2 years. I'm from Campbell River, a small town in BC, where time moves incredibly slowly. After her laughing at his joke and finishing his handful of life, she escorted him back downstairs like nothing had ever happened. My cousin would seriously take advantage of my parents by using their pool. Or so I thought. She would only contact them during the 3 months of decent weather we get, and it was always to invite her friends over to my parents' pool. After it had happened a few times, I dropped by one weekend during one of her bachelor-style pool parties. I said to my dad, who is in his 70s, "Aren't you tired of her just taking advantage of you?" "Dad, taking advantage of me? She brings a dozen 20-somethings here in swimsuits. Do you have any idea how much yard work I can get done with that kind of motivation?" I went in to talk to my mom, who said, "Oh, don't start disturbing things. I just made lunch for the girls, the house is quiet, and your father hasn't bothered me all day. Go get my keys, and ask him to clean out my car while he's out there, I'm halfway through a good movie." TLDR, thought my cousin and her 20 friends were taking advantage of my elderly parents. As usual, turns out I'm the only one who's unhappy. A similarly funny story. My brother once lived with a bunch of his buddies renting a house. One day one of them gets a big bag of packing peanuts from the post office and dumps it down the stairs to make a waterfall. Then they sat there for months, dude never picked them up. Anytime someone would tell him to pick them up, the dude would grab a small handful, toss it in the trash and go back to what he was doing. When pressed to do more, he would say there's too many of them. When I was 10, my mother and I moved across the country from one city to another, leaving all our friends behind. We didn't get to see many of them for years. When I was 13 and had to have knee surgery, and when one of my mother's old friends, let's call her Fat Bitch, found out, she said she was coming up to support me and my mother and help out while I was recovering. This was a woman who was like an aunt to me. The plan was she'd stay with us for 2 weeks and help me if I needed it while my mother was at work. She arrives the night before my surgery, has dinner and breakfast, and then goes with us to the hospital, all the time being extremely supportive and helping me and my mother through our anxieties about the surgery. Unfortunately, that's where it stopped. When I woke up, Fat Bitch had gone to get lunch and had eaten too much and gotten food poisoning or something, then had to go back to our place to sleep it off. Sounds legit enough at the time. That night my mother stayed to have dinner with me at the hospital. She got a call from Fat Bitch, who was asking, "Why aren't you here? I come up here to hang out with you and you're nowhere." My mother obviously replies that she's in the hospital with me, to which Fat Bitch says he'll be fine, let's go to a bar. Surgery didn't go as well as we thought it would, so I ended up staying in the hospital for a few more nights, and every night it'd be the same thing. Then when I finally got home, Fat Bitch would start saying the same things and start fights with my mother. "I came up to see you. Why aren't we going out? We're meant to be having fun. Last time I saw her she was meant to be hanging out with me while my mother was working, but instead she was packing her shit while complaining about my mother on the phone to her husband. She didn't even say goodbye on the way out." Apparently my mom got a text from Fat Bitch recently saying she was in town and she wanted to hang out because she'd forgiven her. Mom obviously told her no and to not contact her again. Husband and I threw a party at our house once. Never again. So many guests just had no fucking respect for our property. One guy got in an argument with his girlfriend and punched a hole in the drywall in our downstairs bathroom out of frustration. Someone threw a Jello shot at the wall. It went unnoticed until morning when I found it had slid down the wall and ruined the carpet. We had typical party food set out for people to eat, but apparently that wasn't good enough for some people. I caught one lady cracking some of our eggs onto a paper plate because she wanted eggs. Caught another bitch putting an entire bag of my pizza rolls into the microwave, bag and all. For fuck's sake, we had tons of snacks out, there is no excuse to dig through our goddamn fridge for something else. Smoking in the house when we clearly told everyone to smoke in the garage. Found lots of cigarette butts laying around in the house. We're done having parties. Edited to add, holy shit, I didn't think this many people would respond. I should have added some backstory to my original post. The idiots that caused trouble at our house weren't even friends of my husband or I. We planned this party with one other guy, who behind our backs invited a bunch of his own friends, who all brought guests. The day of the party, we thought everything would go smoothly even if we had a ton of extra people. The more the merrier, as they say. Turns out we were wrong and have since learned our lesson. We also chewed out the other guy for inviting his asshole friends and their buddies. So to answer all of the messages of your friends suck, yeah, one of them did. We don't talk to him anymore.
This year, like I said, I'm having a midlife crisis. I've started a YouTube channel and I'm on a big health kick. One thing that I found is very easy to eat, very easy to prepare, is I heat up chickpeas with chicken broth and tikka masala. And there are two schools of thought about how you should eat beans. Some people believe you should buy the dry beans and soak them, but I tried that and it was a disaster. So I buy canned beans every time. And if I'm opening like 2 cans a day to be on this diet, it is a massive pain in the ass if the can has this jagged metal edge. I'm worried if like little bits of metal are getting into my food and going to slice up my intestines. So I found this special can opener that actually opens the can in a way that is completely safe, no metal's getting in your food, and is 1,000 times better than any other can opener I've ever used. So if you wind up, opening a lot of cans for whatever reason, maybe you've got a cat or something, you must buy this can opener from my affiliate link.
When I was like 5 years old, I went to my friend's house for a play date and he had a shit ton of action figures. Being a 5-year-old, I convinced him to let me have one for keeps since he had so many. As I'm leaving the house with my new toy, my mom stops me, finds out what I'm doing, and forces me to return it. I still think about this and cringe at what a selfish little shit I was. In 6th grade, my parents got me my first cat for Christmas, a little black kitten that they got on a whim when they saw a free kitten sign. Not too long after, I had a sleepover with the two friends, A and C. A was a cat lover and C thought he was bad luck because he was a black cat. Apparently he walked in front of C kind of at the top of the stairs, and she kicked him and he fell down the stairs. A and I were naturally upset and let her have it. C said she was sorry and she wouldn't do it again. In the morning, as we were still laying around in the living room, my kitten was sniffing around C's sleeping bag. She was uncomfortable but didn't say or do anything because she knew we would kick her out of our friend group. He needed a minute or so, then did a couple spins, and sprayed all over her sleeping bag. It was the most wonderful delivery of karma I had ever seen. He was fixed shortly thereafter. Lol. My friend's husband peed in the hallway when we were all drunk. He said the bathroom was full and he couldn't make it outside to pee on a bush. Next time I saw him, I gave him a small potted plant with a homemade men's room sign stuck in it, and told him now he had a porta potty. The plant died. Frown. This happened to my friend. She has a koi pond in her backyard that her and her husband built themselves. It's a nice little pond in the ground with rocks and a waterfall. They also have a couple of cats. They go out of town for a couple weeks and one of her work friends takes care of her house. A few days and this work friend comes over and dumps the entire bag of cat food onto the kitchen floor. Then she decided that the water in the koi pond looked a bit low, so they turn on the hose to top it off. Only they forget to turn the hose off when they leave. She never comes back to the house to check on anything. A couple days later, the neighbor notices that their backyard is flooded and that there's koi swimming around in the yard. They turn off the water and try to catch the koi but are not successful. The koi end up dying or getting away. Luckily the cats inside were okay. The neighbor calls my friend to tell her what happened. Let's just say that my friend is not friends with her coworker anymore. I told my friend about this subreddit and how I posted what happened to her, and she wanted me to also tell you that a tree that was supposed to be watered in the front yard died because her friend didn't water it. I used to house sit pretty often for a family friend. One time she was going to be gone for the entire month of December, which meant it'd be at her place over Christmas. I asked her if it would be okay to have a few people over, literally just my boyfriend, his best friend and my best friend, to use her jacuzzi Christmas Eve and cook breakfast for Christmas morning. Like the most boring, laid-back thing you can imagine a group of 4 young 20-somethings getting up to. I still must have asked her a million times if she was sure it was okay. I even called my mom to confirm that what I was asking wasn't out of line. And when everyone was over, I was on all of them to be respectful of her house, don't touch anything that even looks expensive or important, and I locked her bedroom door and home office door. I cannot comprehend being trusted with going into someone's personal space and just fucking shit up without a second thought. It'd be a complete wreck if I so much as accidentally broke a $2 IKEA glass while house sitting for another person. I had a contractor build my deck many years ago. He brought his wife and children on the last 2 days of work. His wife sat in the car and his kids hung out in our unfinished muddy backyard. Then he asked if his little girls could play in my house because the yard was messy. I was at work but said yes, go ahead and let them inside. His wife fixed lunch and dinner in there and they made themselves at home. When the deck was done, he overcharged me because he said I had too much money and he needed to support his wife and children. It turns out he thought if the family was there I wouldn't discuss financial issues with him. He directly told me that. I did discuss the overcharge, paid him what we agreed upon, not the extra amount. As a thank you for hiring him, he accused of being a selfish, greedy person. Sigh, I had a friend who would do this. She lived in the city and used to come out to my house in the suburbs for weekends in the summer. She had a habit of always insisting on my exiting any door ahead of her. We'd come home from dinner and the door to the house would be standing wide open. When I asked what the hell she was thinking, she said, "Oh, I have a doorman in my place who closes the door, so I'm not used to closing doors." No, she doesn't. I've been to her apartment and she still has to close her own apartment door. It's not like she had a private doorman. And did she see a doorman at my house? No. It happened more than once and really irritated me. Then I started insisting on going out last since she couldn't be trusted. I could have been robbed. She also used to walk a few steps behind me anytime we went anywhere, and it was irritating AF to talk to her over my shoulder. Don't know what was up with that, we were just friends, but maybe it's a Japanese thing? I kept asking her to stop it. I don't see her anymore because of all of this, and because I realize that we have nothing at all in common, so have the same conversations all the time. Had a friend come over once and we drank together. She invited a boy over. I went to bed, woke up to her yelling, told her to be quiet, my mom was sleeping. She started yelling at me, fuck you BC. The boy she invited over was talking to me more. A boy I had zero interest in. Followed by my mom waking up in the morning to find that my friend had passed out on the couch with all our back doors wide open. Oh yay, sat down on my computer that had Pandora going on my system, changed the station, logged me out of Facebook and logged himself in. Do you remember your FB password? Because I don't. I asked him to get up and get off of my computer twice. The third time I grabbed him by the neck and opened the front door with his face. In college, my roommate invited some of his old high school friends to stay at our house for the weekend. One of them got blackout drunk, threw up on our carpet, and shit his pants in one of our armchairs. Some clarification for those of you saying it's acceptable to get drunk sometimes and accidents happen. If they were my close friends or even my roommate's close friends, I'm more okay with it. It was two high school seniors, one of which was a kind of friend of my roommate and the other was Poop Chair Boy, whom neither of us had met. They came up to visit our uni and were mostly looking for a free place to stay, so it's not like they were coming up to hang out with my roommate. They came to lunch with us, but they went off to some darties in the afternoon and we didn't hear from them until 1 a.m. Poop Chair Boy was being carried and we ended up having to sit him propped up in an armchair with his head in a trash can. He still kept missing the trash can, getting puke on the carpet, and then at like 3 a.m. we heard a loud shart and then we had to go throw out our chair.
Did you know that when you drink tea from a tea bag, especially a cheap tea bag, you are exposing yourself to microplastics greater in quantity than from any other source? Microplastics are the number one health risk of our generation, and they will have unknown consequences on future generations. So, if you value your health, destroy your tea bags. But that doesn't mean you can't enjoy great tea. I'm going to post affiliate links for my own homebrew loose leaf tea concoction that I drink every single day. It has no microplastics, and it honestly tastes better than tea from a tea bag ever did. So be sure to click the links below and get on the loose leaf tea train to avoid poisoning yourself and your children.
This was a guy I was seeing. My son at the time was 2.5, he had a teddy he brought everywhere with him. It didn't bother me cause kids like comfort toys, well this guy had an issue with it. So we're out on my balcony and my son had showed this guy his teddy bear. He had grabbed the bear, threw it over the balcony and told my son to grow up, bears are for babies. Darren, you're a dick, I still cannot stand you. Had a friend staying with us for a while. She was trying to get back on her feet. I had just adopted a new kitten, about 10 weeks old. One day, I am standing in the kitchen, talking with said friend when I hear my new kitty meowing, loudly, but sounds kind of muffled. I proceed to start looking around for her. She sounded distressed. Said friend just stands there, with a kind of crooked smile. So, I asked her where the kitten was. She said she had no idea. The meows are getting less and less, and I am walking all over the place, waiting for the next meow to lead me to her. She was in the freezer. WTF? I pretty much screamed at the psycho, upon retrieving my shivering, confused and miserable kitten. WTF did you do? She smiled and said, I thought you knew, cats love to be cold. I told her, well, that's just great, and since she claimed to love and understand cats so much, she will appreciate how cold she would be tonight, on the street, out of my house. I told her she had about 10 minutes to get her shit and get out, or not only would she be getting an ass kicking, I would be calling the police regarding her cruelty to animals. She left. Kitty survived to be 18 years. One summer while my family was up north, my best friend at the time asked if her and my other good friend could use my pool. I said okay and told her where the key was. She ended up throwing not one but 3 house parties at my house without my knowledge. My grandmother even walked in on one because she was there to water the plants. The entire house was trashed. There was bleach spots on my lawn, bong water stains on the kitchen tablecloth, and broken glass everywhere. Wasn't friends with her after that. Hello everyone. I just wanted to say that I joined Reddit yesterday and this is my very first post. Thank you so much for all of the support. You guys rock. The guy who we invited to our weekly poker game after he creepily found out about it from a mutual friend and invited himself. It was around Christmas time, so he brings 2 fruit cakes and tells my roommate and I girls in front of our other friends, mostly guys, that the cakes are just for us because they're low in sat fat, his obnoxious way of saying saturated fat, and girls don't want to get fat. He then proceeded to play like an absolute dickhead, splashing the pot, trying to bet under the minimum, folding out of turn, etc. He was loud and rude and kept saying weird things all night. Just as everyone was getting thoroughly sick of him, he turns to me and asks me if I want to go on a date sometime. In front of about 12 other people. I was not in any way attracted to this guy, nor had I done anything to encourage him to think so. I told him no as nicely as I could, but god damn it, he persisted. He asked me out again, and said if you say no this time everyone will know it's because you think you're better than me and I'm not good enough to go out with you. Of course, I wanted to tell him that I thought he was an asshole and that's why I didn't want to go out with him, but I didn't want to end up having a SVU episode based on my gruesome murder. I sputtered out something about not wanting to date anyone at the moment and he more or less accepted it and shut up. We never invited him back and we had poker at someone else's house for 2 months after, just to be sure he wouldn't show up. He later got arrested for threatening to shoot his neighbor over parking spot he'd shoveled out.
This year, like I said, I'm having a midlife crisis. I've started a YouTube channel and I'm on a big health kick. One thing that I found is very easy to eat, very easy to prepare, is I heat up chickpeas with chicken broth and tikka masala. And there are 2 schools of thought about how you should eat beans. Some people believe you should buy the dry beans and soak them, but I tried that and it was a disaster. So I buy canned beans every time. And if I'm opening like 2 cans a day to be on this diet, it is a massive pain in the ass if the can has this jagged metal edge. You know, I'm worried if like little bits of metal are getting into my food and going to slice up my intestines. So I found this special can opener that actually opens the can in a way that is completely safe, no metal's getting in your food, and is 1,000 times better than any other can opener I've ever used. So if you wind up, opening a lot of cans for whatever reason, maybe you've got a cat or something, you must buy this can opener from my affiliate link.